Hello everyone, welcome back to Code of Armigers. Today we have an American Civil War double feature as we don our captain's hats and head to the war-torn waters. The naval theater of the American Civil War is one of my favorite theaters throughout history. It shows just how big something as small as a civil war can actually get. It also shows just how desperate the Confederacy was to build up a sizable navy and break the Union blockade. All of these things will be explained as we transition into the historical aspects of today's video. After the success of CSS Virginia at Hampton Roads, the Confederacy came under a severe case of ironclad fever. Every shipbuilder, organization, and shipyard was out to create one of these new ironclads to break the Yankee blockade. One of these ironclads was to be CSS Albemarle. Built in a makeshift shipyard in a cornfield along the banks of the Ronaoke River, CSS Albemarle, as well as her sister ship Neuse, had one mission: drive away the Yankee warships patrolling around the various North Carolina sounds. Before she could accomplish this mission, however, she would have to assist in the capture of Plymouth, North Carolina, which was in a position to threaten Lee's supply line. The attack on Plymouth would be devised by Major General Robert Hoke, who would need the assistance of Albemarle to deal with the two Yankee gunboats guarding the town on the river. Albemarle slid off the ways and was commissioned on April 17th and proceeded down the river to Plymouth. Blacksmiths and carpenters still stood on the decks finishing the boat. She continued downriver, crossing over obstructions and passing under the guns of Yankee gun batteries along the banks. She would disembark any non-crew members just before reaching Plymouth, and would round a bend in the river and come into full view of the two Yankee gunboats guarding Plymouth. Our first game today picks up here, as Albemarle closes in to attack USS Miami and USS Southfield. The rules used for today's games are Dawn of Iron by Scary Biscuits Studios. These are fast-paced set of rules for the naval theater of the American Civil War, and do their job extremely well. To make the game simpler and speed play even further, I have chosen to use a die roll to determine player/captain initiative. In the morning hours of April 19th, 1864, two Yankee gunboats had prepared for the rebel rams steaming to engage them. As Albemarle approached, both Miami and Southfield opened up at long range with their 100-pound Parrott rifles. Both shots missed the enemy boat and splashed harmlessly in the water. Albemarle continues down the river and soon opens up with her own rifle. Her gunners are inexperienced, only practicing a handful of gun drills during the trip downriver, and her shot misses as well. Things would soon change as the distance closed. Albemarle would move between the enemy boats, unleashing a broadside on Southfield as she turns towards Miami off her port bow. Fortunately for Southfield, the damage is only minor. Unfortunately for Miami, Albemarle is now in an ideal position to ram and fully intends to do so. Miami attempts to fire a defensive broadside, while all the shots bounce off the Albemarle's casemate with resounding clangs. Albemarle's stokers work overtime, shoveling coal into her boilers, and she buries her ram deep into Miami's port side, dealing a fatal blow to the ship. As Miami goes down and Albemarle reverses away, she fires her stern gun at Southfield once more, dealing more minor damage. As Miami settles on the bottom of the river, Southfield now sees the writing on the wall and is forced to retreat to Albemarle Sound. With the river now free of the enemy, Albemarle turns her guns on the Yankee garrison at Plymouth, carrying Hoke's infantry to victory. Now for our double feature, the Battle of Cherbourg, the famous fight off the coast of France. This battle is one of those that clearly shows just how far a civil war can spread without it seeming like it. CSS Alabama was built under an assumed name in an English shipyard, armed with English guns, but after she sailed into international waters was crewed by Confederate sailors. By the time she put into Cherbourg in 1864, she had been at sea for almost 2 years out of a little over 3, boarded 450 ships, burned or captured 65 of those for being Yankee merchant ships, and had taken over 2,000 prisoners without a single loss of life from them or her crew. Almost all of these prizes were captured outside of U.S. waters, such as the Azores, Brazil, Bermuda, the Indian Ocean, and the Strait of Malacca, which in turn meant that Alabama never docked in a Confederate port. After this very lengthy time at sea, The ship was beginning to show some serious wear and sailed into Cherbourg for dry dock and overhaul. 3 days after her arrival, the Yankee ship that had been hunting her, USS Kearsarge, arrived, trapping Alabama in the port. Not wishing to see his ship crumble away at the pier, the captain of Alabama, Raphael Semmes, began preparing and drilling to face Kearsarge in a one-on-one duel. We begin the game on June 11th, 1864. Both ships beat to quarters as Alabama steams out to face her adversary. Several broadsides are exchanged at long and medium range, with little damage being done. As the ships close to within point-blank range, Kearsarge fires her Dahlgrens, burying one of the shells in the stern post of Alabama, preventing her from turning, a shot that historically would have hit the Kearsarge. The distance between the ships begins to increase and the gunfire dies down. Soon, the Confederate sailors dislodge the shell, freeing up the rudder and allowing Alabama to return to the fight. She closes rapidly, her 100-pound Blakely guns turning to bear on the Kearsarge. She lets loose with a broadside, but her rate of fire was too rapid and resulted in poor aim and gunnery skills, causing these shots to last harmlessly among the waves. Unknown to the Alabama gunners, they had damaged the chain armor on the Kearsarge with an earlier broadside. If these missed shots had hit, it may have spelled the end for the Yankee ship. Over on the Kearsarge, the gunnery skills were a different story. The ghosts of the Yankee gun crews must have come to the aid of my opponent as he let loose with a broadside of his own. The gunners look down the sights of their guns, pull the cord, and send an 11-inch Dahlgren shell straight into Alabama's magazine, where it explodes, ignites the powder, and sends the Alabama to the bottom of the English Channel. With the outcome of both games mostly emulating their historical outcomes, things most likely would have continued as they did historically, doomed the Confederacy to be crushed by the Yankee forces and the powerful coastal blockade.